Welcome. The tag Vishwaguru to the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji is Vishwaguru was promoted. I don't know who kept actually the Vishwaguru to Narendra Modi ji, but that name was promoted by their own cadre. They meant to say that internationally famous person. Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji was internationally famous person. That is how they promote it. Whether it is true or not, it all depends on the perception and belief of their own followers. The supporters of Narendra Modi ji believe that he is Vishwaguru and believe that he is really international famous person, but opponents of Narendra Modi ji, they argue something else. Whatever, because of this cockroach Janata Party protest, it is fundamental fact that the image of Narendra Modi was a little bit of tarnished, damaged, not only within the India and then even across the globe. Why? The youngsters, the youngsters were heavily damaged the reputation of the Prime Minister. The way they spoke online, the way the memes, they even sometimes objectionable wordings used by these youngsters. The Honorable Prime Minister neither he can arrest them nor he can punish them because they are youngsters. They are just less than 18, 19, 20, and young students were abusing and then using all this language and the Honorable Prime Minister, and then he might have understood that my damage is going down, and then he asked Pradhan to resign. That's the story we know. That now, what I mean to say is that there are some international newspapers covered this aspect, and then the reputation of Narendra Modi ji across the globe and the reputation of the government across the globe, definitely it tarnished. So that was the biggest problem now. Let me tell you a few newspapers what they wrote in their newspapers, like writers. There is a news, online news, offline, whatever maybe. Generally we know the writers, they publish more online news. So these writers, what they wrote actually is that this was the biggest challenge faced by the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji since ever he formed the governments in 2014. This was the biggest challenge he faced, and that's too from the youngsters. There was a name, there was the followers will talk about this word of mouth that Narendra Modi is a tough man. He doesn't actually bend to any pressure. That was the name, and that was how even his own cadre will believe in that. But suddenly, that particular toughness image was damaged heavily by these youngsters, all the youth of India, because they see the resignation is something else. Asking Dharmendra Pradhan to resign that's a different story. But the language they used on the Honorable Prime Minister, that was a big concern. Definitely, the analysts are saying that the youngsters, they literally attacked and even the Prime Minister. So, why this happened? It shows the reflection. This was a reflection that this is how we can understand that how, what do we say, the dissatisfaction among the youngsters. This is how the dissatisfaction among the youngsters on the problems like unemployment. Outwardly we can see that NEET exam, paper leakages, dissatisfaction, injustice to the NEET students, injustice to the students who are writing exam. These are all outwardly seen, but inwardly there is something else which are not publicly being discussed more. That is unemployment. Unemployment also one of the reasons that not all the students were there. All the students who gathered there, they're actually not all of them are students. There were unemployed youth who completed education. Why? Because their problem was the unemployment. They don't have opportunities to earn money. They don't have opportunities to get job. There were a lot of problems. So all this was written by the Reuters. There is one more newspaper, uh, CNN. They also covered one they also covered one point here. What they wrote is, uh, this is growing threat to the government of Narendra Modi. They said, the CNN, what they wrote is, this is just a sample, but this is growing threat. This is growing dissatisfaction to the government of Narendra Modi. We cannot restrict this only to the exams and NEET exams and a NEET paper, but this is also a problem faced by the youngsters in India. This is what actually they wrote. And moreover, the students were talking about the accountability. We have seen one video, one small girl, like a 9th class textbook she carried. She's telling the page number 12, we studied that democracy means that the government should be accountable to the people. And then one 9th class girl was teaching. And this was the biggest, embarrassment for the government and India and everybody, because it's onlinely the 9th class student is teaching the government about accountability. So all these things were actually made the image of Narendra Modi ji and the government and India, of course, across global platforms. It was a little bit of tarnished. CNN, there is one more, BBC. They also covered that news. What the BBC said, they said, in the recent times, this is the largest student movement. According to BBC, this the student protest of the by this CJP, in the recent times, this was the biggest, according to BBC. In somewhere in 1970s, there was a movement called Navnirmana movement. So comparatively that, this somewhat looking like that. Of course, all the time, whenever the movement comes, that it leads to some reformations. There will be some reformations will be taken, and then definitely there will be changes will be done. Every movement leads to some good. Obviously, it leads to some positive thing. But slowly these movements will be forgotten later, and the politicians again slowly they will come to their normal place. But here we have to see how long this CJP will continue this dissatisfaction. This was actually written by BBC. There is one more newspaper, The Guardian. What this Guardian people wrote, that this particular political effect, this protest, not only it affects the political, but also it affects cultural issues also, because the Bharatiya Janata Party was promoting cultural politics, culture politics, religion politics, nationality politics. And now when the students comes out and talk about employment and all, it's going to affect even on that narration of the culture, religion and all. Definitely it affects, because the job, employment, education is more important than culture, religion and all. That's what actually writers, the Guardian, they try to say that. Okay. The Guardian, they also wrote that the cine famous people like celebrities, most of them are silent. Only few people like Salman Khan, hardly Prakash Raj, and few people talked on this, but most of the cinema actors, they are silent on that. So that also, the youth were angry on that also. So the youth were thinking that it's on our own country, why our celebrities will never support us. This dissatisfaction is there. That's what, according to the Guardian news. There is one more, the Independent Britain. There is one more international news, the Independent Britain, what they wrote. According to them, lakhs of students, they actually, it was a Telugu article. This Telugu article I'm trying to convert into English and I'm trying to tell. They say that lakhs of students, this particular protest it says that లక్షలాది మంది విద్యార్థులను ప్రభావితం చేసిన పరీక్షల లీకేజీపై జవాబు accountability. They're talking about accountability. The lakhs of students, Gen Z, they came on the roads and then they were talking about the accountability of India and the Indian government. Okay, this was a gift by the youngsters. This is how they wrote the Independent Britain. The Globe and Mail, Canada, these people what they wrote. In the recent times, this was the strongest threat to the Modi government. And as it is, the most important thing is that Narendra Modi is bending to that pressure is a rare instant. And I think the resignation of the central minister is the biggest issue. That is according to the Globe and Mail Canada. Al Jazeera, SCMP, these newspapers they wrote in recently ప్రజా వ్యతిరేకత కనిపించడం ఇదేనని అల్ జజీరా తెలిపింది. ఉద్యమం యూనివర్సిటీ క్యాంపస్లకు పరిమితం కాకుండా. ఓకే, దిస్ మూమెంట్ నాట్ ఓన్లీ రిస్ట్రిక్టెడ్ టు ది యూనివర్సిటీ క్యాంపసెస్ and also beyond the campuses the students were mobilized voluntarily. They all attended, the youngsters, and then they protested. So these are all the different global newspapers they wrote, covered this news across the globe, and then definitely it will be a big image damage protest to the government and the Narendra Modi, obviously to the India, because once they talk about India, they don't talk about Modi, they don't talk about BJP, they don't talk about any political party, they talk about India, Indian Prime Minister and the youngsters, right? Then it is a damage to the image of the youngsters, right? Image of the overall India. That's what I want to say. Thank you, Namaskar.